I went to a coffee shop a week or so ago, and the tip jar said, "Hate change, leave it here." And I laughed and I left some coins in the jar, and I also thought about other changes that I would like to leave in that jar. Mood swings, aging, relationships, climate, time changes. What would you leave in the I hate change jar? This week, though, we're talking about holding on to our changes, not leaving them behind. So what do I mean by holding change? I turned to Adrienne Marie Brown, author of the book Holding Change, for an eloquent answer. To hold change or hold space is to hold both the people in and the dynamic energy of a room, a space, a meeting, an organization, a movement. To hold change is to make it easy for people with shared intentions to be around each other and move toward their vision and values and navigate conflict in a way that is generative and accountable. It's a way of being with changes. I talk about holding space in a pastoral sense, allowing whatever is there to bubble up and get comfortable in the space. And it's scary sometimes when we're talking about change, bubbling up and getting comfortable, letting things emerge and take up space in our predefined comfort zones. Yet change is constant. God is change. I am so grateful for our youth for reading the excerpts from Octavia Butler's Parable of the Sower. When Butler talks about God, she's not referring to an entity. The God of Earthseed, or us, is not a person. The God of Earthseed does not love or hate us or watch over us or know us at all. The God of Earthseed just is. God is power, infinite, irresistible, inexorable, indifferent, she says. One irresistible force of the universe is change. Everything in the universe changes. Every living thing, every bit of matter, all the energy in the universe changes in some way. So how do we hold that? Hold space. Hold a malleable God in the palm of our hands. There's an embodiment exercise in Brown's book that might help us get there a little bit more. Do you remember being young, guided in an exercise of breathing where you cupped your hands around an invisible ball of energy and moved it? I want you to breathe with me now. Either visualize or practicing that in front of you is a ball of energy, and it's yours, an extension of you. It hovers in the air, shifting with your intention. Breathe out while pushing this invisible ball of energy away from you. Breathe in, bringing the energy into you and all around you. Breathe out and move it up above your head. Spread it into a massive, glorious umbrella. Breathe in and bring it back to center and hold it there. Breathe out and take it down through your bones to the floor. Breathe in, rolling back up, and bring the energy back into your heart. Keep breathing. I wonder what shape is the change that you're holding now? What shape is the change that we're holding collectively. Holding Change, the book, is about emergent strategy of facilitation and mediation. It's a way of holding changes gracefully. In Brown's chapters on intentional adaptation, facilitation, and mediation, she writes, "Change is constant. You can't stop change, control change, or perfectly plan change. You can ride the waves of change, partner with change, and shape change." We are bound in relationship with change, not separate from it. And adaptation is a way of holding it across time. She talks about adaptation being the way of holding change that moves toward life. Loving life means committing to the adaptation to stay alive, rather than the stubbornness to stay the same. And in her work in generative somatics, an embodiment practice, she learned to make declarations or statements that speak about who we are becoming in service of the world we are working to create. The practice requires us to say, "I am a commitment to" something we are longing for or intending. When we begin to think of our intentions and longings as elements of change, perhaps we can begin to embrace those changes a bit more. She writes, "I am a commitment to resilient movements that sustain and deepen under the pressure of change and difference." She says, "I am a commitment to trusting love the way I trust gravity." She invites us to get relaxed and intentional in the face of change, to get curious about life and the ways that will help us stay connected to what and who we care about. She reminds us of the tenderness with which we hold a newborn, the beauty of holding a child's hand at a crossroads, the grace of holding an elder, supporting her out of bed and into a chair so you can change the sheets. With care and attention, we can vividly imagine practicing intentional adaptation. Emergent strategy is the way we generate and reshape complex systems with patterns with relatively simple interactions, like singing when the Spirit says sing, and doing when the Spirit says do. Simple little interactions. According to the UUA song information page, "When the Spirit Says Do" was one of the songs that was used during the Civil Rights era at virtually every demonstration, mass meeting of activists, and march in the late 1950s and early 1960s. Singing songs help give the activists strength and a sense of self. And I imagine it injected the spirit among them too, to hold the change together. Since not all of you are familiar with emergent strategy and holding change, I thought a review of some of these principles would help us glean some gems to take away this day. Small is good. Small is all. The large is a reflection of the small. Change is also fractal in nature. Larger change is always a reflection of smaller changes that happened. This is my opportunity to remind you that your single vote counts. Change is constant. Be like water, she says. Be malleable, adaptable, shift shapers, rather than staying rigid. There's always time to do the right work. Always, always, always. Important work rises to the top because of its urgency, connection, or because the time has simply arrived. There's a conversation in the room that only these people at this moment can have. Find it. Listen for it. What's the theme? What's the mood? What's the atmosphere? Lean into the conversation that emerges rather than trying to control it. Another principle, never a failure, always a lesson. Write that one down. Never a failure. You are worthy. Always a lesson. You are growing. You are loved. You are not alone. Another principle, trust the people. If you trust the people, they become trustworthy. I absolutely must trust the people of this congregation if it is ever to become a beloved community. Another principle, move at the speed of trust. Focus on critical connections more than critical mass. Build the resilience by building the relationships. I think she means don't rush and don't drag. Move at the speed of trust. Focus on genuine relationship and care, and the rest will often follow close behind. If you struggle along the way, at least you will be able to recover, to be resilient, because you've already built a foundation of love. She encourages less prep, more presence. I'm trying not to write all my words down and just to be present. But it's not about showing up empty-handed without any preparation. It's about showing up with the intention of being fully present for what is there in the room and what might need attention. What you pay attention to grows. We know this wisdom from so many sources, and it's a wonderful reminder. After writing those principles of emergent strategy in her first book, Brown continued to adapt and change as we do in our own lives. And while the principles of emergent strategy still make up a foundation of holding change, she added several in particular that I would like to share. Begin by listening. Always a good reminder that the words listen and silent have the same letters. Think about that. She says, transform yourself to transform the world. Does that sound familiar? Before we even laid eyes on this book, we had that as our UUCF mission. What we practice is what we are. That also sounds very UU. Deeds, not creeds. What we do is who we become. She says, name what is and make more possible. Don't stop at what is and what has been. But naming what is can open doors to make more possible. She says, release perfection and relinquish judgment. Perfectionism blocks so much possibility, as does judgment. Create a culture of celebration, pivot towards pleasure. This is one of the reasons we had the dinner with the ministers recently, why we plan holiday parties and family potlucks and fall festivals and art openings, to pivot toward pleasure and celebration. Invitation goes further than manipulation, and it feels better. Release your way to feel the way. And this is so hard right now with the way the world is turning. But again, it's a good reminder to trust the process and know that we will feel the next bold move that's needed from us. The last one that she lists, time can bend. Not like time changes or pandemic time, but in a philosophical sense, time is a precious resource that has the gift of surprise. Have you ever been in such a good conversation and you looked up at the clock and realized you'd completely lost track of time? Time can bend. Relationship and connection changes our priorities and makes time for the right stuff. I hope that you've received a gem or two from today's wisdom gleaned from Adrienne Marie Brown, Octavia Butler, and a myriad other resources that have fed into what is known as movement work today. Remember that we hold change together, energetically, physically, spiritually. We are never alone, ever. And we are absolutely called by life, by love, by hope, and by faith. Faith meaning the belief that there is a better world possible if we hold change together.